First, I'd like to say that it is pretty amazing what you can do with a line. Now, I'm going to try to build a little bit of familiarity with what the new sketcher does versus what the old sketcher does to give you an idea of what's happening behind the scenes between the old sketcher, the new sketcher, etc., etc. So I'm going to start out with, well, let me do this just so you can see it. I am going to draw in a line, and that line, as you can see, is going to snap to vertical. That is a found relation. Now, to prove it, I'm going to click on the endpoint, and there is my vertical, right over there, vertical relation found. Now, next thing I'm going to do is I am going to pick the line and apply, we'll go 125, a relation to that line. So now that line is 125 and it is vertical. If I click on that dimension and go into edit annotation as an example, you're going to see a very familiar menu. Now, as I look at this menu, you'll notice there's my first object. There is my second object. First object, second object. What does that mean? Notice the icon. The icon is telling you the first object is a point. The second object is a point. And the dimension has to be vertical. Okay? This we are all familiar with. We've all used, well, hopefully all of us have used the sketcher by this point in the history of NX ever. And that linear dimension is a vertical dimension. It just happens the 2 points are on a line that is got a relation set to vertical. Okay? So that is familiar. If I come over here and grab that point and give it a little jiggle, you'll note that it removes those relations. I've already talked about this. Okay, so I'm just going to do that, remove those relations. If I pick on the line, you'll notice there's no relations on it, nowhere. So I am going to pick on it, and I am going to pick this dimension, and I am going to make it 125. And then I am going to go into it, and I am going to go into edit annotation, and I am going to look at it, and it's going to tell me that it is vertical. Okay, because the line or the dimension is being placed vertically based off of my initial axis definition, and it's going between those 2 points. That's how this horizontal works the same way. Okay. Now, if I came in here, let me delete this. I'm going to pick this. I'm going to place this dimension on there. Now, when I go into the annotation editor, you'll notice this is point to point. It works very similarly to the horizontal and vertical, but it is going from endpoint to endpoint, and the dimension in this case is parallel to the line. Again, this is the same. These found dimensions are exactly the same for all intents and purposes as the dimensions you would normally place on something. Okay? I'm going to undo. Actually, let me just delete the line. So, if I come in now and draw in a rectangle, and I come in and give this, let's say 150, and I give this, whoops, there we go, I thought I hit the middle mouse button, and I give this dimension, let's say 130. Now, I want you to notice something. I drew in a rectangle. That rectangle had 4 found relations, the horizontal and vertical relations. And when I come in and try to dimension this other side, in the old sketcher, I would have had problems. It would have came back and said, you're over-constrained or you're conflicting constraint, depending upon the type of constraints that I was putting in. But here, with these found relations, the system is saying, well, in order to place this dimension, I have to get rid of a relation. And I'll give you 3 guesses which one of those it's going to get rid of. And if you can't guess it on the first one, I have a lot of concern, little worry for you. Maybe you should pick a different thing to work on. Because it's telling me right now that horizontal relation on the bottom is going to go away. Remember, the color magenta inside of the new sketcher indicates that whatever relation is highlighted magenta is going to be relaxed, meaning it's going to say bye-bye the moment I make an adjustment. I'll grab this arrowhead and adjust it. Now, once I release that mouse and I click my middle mouse button, watch what happens to this fella. Gone. So, with these found relations, the system is doing exactly what you tell it to do, which could be very, very different than what you want the system to do. Okay? So, what you're telling it to do and what you want it to do are 2 very different things. I know it sounds crazy. It's like a kid, right? You may tell a kid to do something, but the kid is going to do something completely altogether what you don't expect, right? Or it's that old tale of the genie, right? You make a wish and the genie gives you exactly what you wish for, not necessarily what you wanted. Okay, there are differences. So the system is really smart. And I'm going to go on the shortest limb in the world and say the developers, which there's a few of them, are probably going to be a lot smarter than all of us. Because in the way that they've developed this is they're saying, well, we're going to give you exactly what you want. Okay? And I told it I want this to be 150 and I want this to be 100. That means necessarily a relation has to go away somewhere. And it was the one down here. Okay? So if I go in, I'm going to undo that. I'm going to pick this. Notice it says this relation is going to go away. If I came in here and pick this relation, and all right, I want to shorten this up, that is now the relation that I'm saying get rid of. I don't have to delete it. I don't have to remove it. I don't have to do this, that, or the other thing. All I have to do is pick on the one that I want to get rid of. The system inferred which one to get rid of. It was the bottom one. Well, maybe that's not the one I want to get rid of. If I want to get rid of the one on top, just pick it. All you got to do is say, this is the one. Or, let me undo that. When I go and place this, the moment I see something turn magenta is the moment I, in my head, should go, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I don't want to do that. Or maybe that's exactly what I want, but now I have to tell the system which one of those I want to get rid of. Okay? So pay attention to what NX is telling you. It's not nagging you. It's just letting you know. It's doing the old, hey, bro, this is what I got. Check it out. Right? If this is what you want, I got to do this. It's one or the other. Take a pick. It's not anchored into this one thing. It's doing exactly as you tell it to do. So you, as the designer, as the engineer, as the creative person working with the system, has to tell the system exactly what you want. All right? So I've got these 2 on here. Now, if I look at the dimension, I look at this guy, well, it's a vertical dimension. All right. If I look at this guy, well, I got another vertical dimension. Okay. Maybe I don't want a vertical dimension, right? I'm going to delete those. Maybe I want to go from here to this point. Now when I look at that, hey, look at that. There's my perpendicular dimension. All right. So if I came in here now and said, all right, this is going to be 200, and this is going to be something different, well, we absolutely know for a fact that this has to go away because I told it to no longer be vertical. Now when I hit apply, look at that. My 150 still goes in. Why? Because this is a perpendicular dimension from this line to there. Okay, so if I look again at my icons, right? There's my first. There's my, what am I measuring from? What am I measuring to? Okay. So all this is doing is saying perpendicular from here to here. This point happens to be at the end point of that line, being perpendicular to that. And the system, let me zoom up on it to make it as obvious as I possibly can. The system is telling you which elements it's referencing. How do I know which elements it's referencing? Well, look at that. If I click on the first object, it's highlighting this line. If I click on the second object, it's highlighting this line, the endpoint of that line. Okay? Now, if I just look at those two lines, you'll notice they are blue. So those are the objects that are being operated on. That's what that blue means. Brown, let me just close this out. Brown means that it is still to be locked down. It's still to have relations to anchor the position of this thing down. So if I came in here and said, all right, this and this, make them collinear, and then I want this endpoint to here, make it coincident, notice it's black. That's telling me that the sketch is fully defined. So again, it's a question of telling the Sketcher tool, the new Sketcher tool, exactly what you want, and it's going to make assumptions, best that it can, based off of your inputs. And also pay attention to those inputs because those colors mean something. Okay? The brown is an undefined line. It's not defined. It doesn't have a relation. Black means that it is fully defined. It tells you right over here. Right? And then if I'm in one of the editing tools, you'll note those black lines are now blue. And when they were brown, they turned blue because the system is telling you exactly what elements that it is referencing while working on that, in this case, dimension. Okay? So pay attention to those colors. They tell you a lot of things. All right? You don't necessarily need a ton of persistent relations. You don't. Okay, there may be a time where you want some. Okay, maybe you want to be very bossy pants and tell the system this is exactly what I want 100% of the time. All right, go for it, but you don't need them. Okay, it's just, again, understanding what you're telling the system and what NX is translating out of what you're telling it. That's it. Okay.